And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest and greatest episode of Game Rivals. I am one of your hosts, Maximilian X, and as always, with me is the man with the master plan, the guy who says, boy, and goes hunting for big giant robots. It's Sean Templar. How's it going, Sean?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's been a hectic kind of a time in terms of gaming. Uh, at least for me, it has been a lot of stuff to go through. But we're not going to talk about the regular stuff because we're going to talk about our gaming origins as we are continuing our discussion from last time. If you remember, maybe you remember, maybe you don't. But we were talking about our like GameCube memories, our like PlayStation 2 memories, and everything that kind of was like related to that stuff. But for this episode, we're gonna talk about everything from like that point onward. So like like the Wii era, the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era, all the way up to well now. Um, so I don't know like if you remember when you got the PlayStation 3, Sean,
Oh,
but
I fondly remember.
like how was that for you? Because I like for me, I didn't get a PlayStation 3 until it was like the PlayStation 3 Slim and it was like discounted and it was like 2 years before the PlayStation 4
Oh,
came
no,
out.
no, 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 no. I was one of those crazy guys that spent 600 euros on a PS3.
Oh,
So
you
I
got
still
the
have
what?
it. Yeah, I still
The
have
one
the
that
60
plays
gigabyte
PlayStation
model.
2 games?
Yeah, yeah. I
Oh,
remember because I was still in school and I had reserved it at two places, and then one place said like you have to make a down payment of 100 euros, and I said like yeah, but will I be guaranteed that I get it? And they were
mhm.
like yeah, we'll guarantee you that you'll get it, and I'd be like okay, fine. And so we got to the point where it came out, and I remember fondly I went to get it. I got Resistance Fall of Man with it, and I got a second controller with it, and lo and behold, they had plenty of stock in all retailers because it was 600 euros and nobody was willing to spend that amount of money. Did I know? But what was cool is I think um, earlier that year, I got a chance to go to the special event PlayStation Netherlands was hosting, in which they had rented like this small, cozy place, and they made like a living room situation out of it, and they put up multiple PS3s.
Oh, dang. Okay.
And then people were invited, and we got to get like an early hands-on of the PS3 back then. So I played Resistance back then. I played back then Sony had the Formula One license, so I played Formula One. I saw
Was this before it went
Motorstorm.
to like Codemasters?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, okay, okay.
yeah. And then so they had like their launch lineup because the PS3 was obviously already out in Japan and America, so their launch lineup was already there, so we could play all those games. And then I knew like, hey, I wanted to get Resistance, and I didn't have an HD TV at the time when I got the PS3, so I was still playing it on my old big fat CRT TV. But I blazed through that single player, and I kept playing multiplayer, and I loved it because it was the first time we had PSN as well. You know that you had like the unified
Right, right,
sign
right.
in,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because on PS2 you had to create an online account for every game you played, whereas on PS3 Sony had like the unified PSN ID. You just created this ID, you could message your friends, you could it was free back in the day. And then as time passed on, of course, they added updates like in-game XMB because it was called the cross media bar. But I mean, at the time, the PS3 was positioned as like the center of your living room, kind of what Xbox tried to do with the Xbox One. But Sony was like, you can play. It was the cheapest Blu-ray player. You could put your photos on it. You could listen music on it. You could make a media server out of it. You could run Linux on it if you wanted to. So it was like this, and I think they had to because it was like such a expensive device also to produce, that they
Yeah.
thought like the more applications we can come up for people to use it, the better it is because it adds value. Because eventually added like the folding at home element where you could
I was
use your
about to
processing
bring that up.
power. Yeah, yeah, to fold proteins for research. I mean, like those days were different because Sony at the time had like made a major slip up, and
Yeah.
like pretty soon after PS3 came out, they replaced Ken Kutaragi with Kazuo Hirai because Kutaragi, stuff got to his head. He got a little bit arrogant. He kept saying weird stuff like, "We don't buy our exclusives. We earn our exclusives." Whereas I mean, if he had just thrown a bag of money in Ubisoft's direction, Assassin's Creed would be a PS3 exclusive. So we lost a lot of games back then. A lot of games went multi-platform, and like everybody was afraid that Metal Gear Solid 4 was going to go multi-platform because that was the sole reason I bought my PS3 at the time. Like the only reason I wanted that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a crazy time.
I mean, I don't think that would have ever happened because it's an like it's a Japanese company. So they don't really necessarily do the money backs thing because that's not in their culture. But yeah, like PlayStation 3, like launch era was super crazy. I remember like one of the I don't I don't know if this I don't remember this for a fact that it was true, but I remember that this was being said by apparently like a Sony executive. No, it wasn't, sorry, it wasn't a Sony executive. It was like um someone was saying like what someone from the press asked like the question of, hey, like 600 bucks, it's a lot. It's like, well, yeah, you can like take out a second mortgage and get one. It's like, dude, what the hell?
Yeah,
Like, why would you say that?
yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
Oh my goodness. But it had an interesting launch period. Did you actually like partake in, like, for example, the folding at home thing?
no, I didn't. Like
No.
for me, it was like the only like a gaming device, and I only played games on it. And I also used the in-game browser a lot because it was easy. You could use Wi-Fi on your PS3. You could connect the keyboard to it. I didn't have a PC of my own at the time, so
Ah, okay.
I could go to YouTube and watch YouTube videos back then. Yeah, I mean, woo!
Yeah, now it's like a novelty, but yeah, back then it would
Exactly.
have been like super
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, but I think the one thing that came out of the PS3 era very clearly, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, is it gave Sony a lot more focus
Mm.
because what it eventually did is they knew like, okay, within a couple of months they killed the 60 gigabyte model and they made a 40 gigabyte model out of it, and then they dropped the price to 399.
Yep.
So like immediately there they were like, okay, you know what, we need to turn this around, so we'll take even more of a loss. And then eventually they started to focus a lot more on their first party lineup. They Because like if I think about the PS2 era, there's not a lot of games I remember from the PS2 era like that Sony made first party that were like wow. But it felt like during the 3 era they kept churning out blockbuster after blockbuster. They made the Uncharted franchise, they made um um, they, even though it was a bit weird, they made games like Infamous or Mag or Ratchet and Clank got like a proper game, because I remember the first Ratchet and Clank that came out on PS3. It looked like a Pixar animation movie, and it has gotten even better over the years. They did a lot more with online stuff. They made SOCOM Confrontation and SOCOM 4. They were doing a lot back then, and I mean, like the Last of Us was a game that came out on PS3, even though we got like a gazillion remakes. It's basically getting the GTA 5 treatment at this point. But,
Yeah.
we were getting a lot of good games from Sony themselves. And I think that's like they were laying the foundation for what they did during the PS4 era and the PS5 era. I mean, like we got Killzone 2, even though that trailer was misleading in the beginning. I
All
don't
the
know.
misleading trailers.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like for example, they also did Warhawk, which was basically Sony's answer to Battlefield, and I loved Warhawk. I still hope they make a remake out of that one because it's like a perfect multiplayer game. It was $30,
Yeah.
and they added booster packs with new maps and new content and weapons and vehicles. Like, at that time, it was all pretty new to Sony, and like they really took some risks, and it really played out well.
It's kind of surprising that they did stuff like that, considering that that's the norm now.
Yeah, but yeah,
Like
but in
like
in
booster
that era,
packs
it
and
was
like
yeah. Yeah, at the time it was new, and I think like they were like, we have nothing to lose. It's do or die, because if they didn't come out of that generation, they probably would have stopped being in gaming altogether.
yeah, true.
And in the end, they overtook Xbox and sold more consoles, even though Xbox had like a 1 or 2 year head start in certain markets.
Yeah. And I do remember from that, at least from that early period, where they were trying a lot of stuff because I
Yeah.
remember when they first showed off the PlayStation 3, they showed it off with that banana boomerang controller,
Ah,
which
the
looks like
batarang, yeah.
the most impractical thing on the planet. And then they came back with like the DualShock 3, but it
Yeah.
wasn't called the DualShock 3 because they couldn't have rumble in it. It was the
Yeah.
six axis controller, and they awkwardly showed off like the six axis. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, you're just trying to do what Nintendo is doing with like the Wii remote.
Yeah,
Because
but like
that,
everybody was playing into motion because of the Wii.
yeah, around that time, because I think it was a year before they like Nintendo showed off the Wii remote at the
Y-
TGS,
Yeah.
like in 2005, because it they both came out in 2006. Like they came out like weeks from each other, weeks
Yeah, I
apart.
remember.
It's crazy. Like did okay, so it's for you, you didn't have to like go to like a midnight launch or anything.
No.
Yeah, neither did I. I just pre-ordered it and then I picked it up, which was
Yeah, well,
pretty
I did
freaking.
the same. I'm not like I love gaming, but not that much that I'm going to sacrifice my sleep or be in a line for hours. Like nah, I'll just pick it up. I did the same with the PS4 launch. So
To be fair, I don't think we had a lot of midnight launches here, like in the Netherlands to begin
they
with.
did it for games like Call of Duty, but that's it. Like for Modern
Yeah,
Warfare and stuff like that.
yeah,
But
not.
yeah,
I don't think. At least from my experience, I've never experienced or seen back in the day that they're like, "Hey, come midnight and like be the first to pick blah 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 up."
yeah.
I've never experienced that before.
I remember in certain, but that's again during when the PS4 came out. I remember like Game Mania doing stuff like that, and MediaMarkt doing stuff like that, midnight launches. And
Okay.
I think like a couple of games like Modern Warfare 2 on the PS3 back then got a midnight launch. MediaMarkt would always do it. Like the one in Rotterdam always used to do it, or
Yeah.
like when Diablo 3 came out on PC. But I mean, like especially now people don't care because you can buy the games digitally and either play it midnight or with a lot with more and more games are getting that pre-order now and get the deluxe edition and get 3 days earlier access or a
Yeah.
week earlier access. So
Yeah. I mean that's true. Um. Yeah. So for me, I didn't like I said I didn't get the PlayStation 3 until like
but you
two
got an
years
Xbox
before.
360, right?
So here's how that went, right? So I got an Xbox 360 in 2007, but I
Okay,
picked up a Wii on launch in
of course.
2006, of course, with Zelda, and it came with Wii Sports, and I showed it off to like the whole family. I brought it home, was like, "Hey, look at this cool new thing! You can use your body, and it's like kind of like an exercise." And my I do remember my dad was like impressed with the fact that you had the motion controls.
Hmm.
But like for me, it was like, okay, I played a little bit of like Wii Sports. It's time for some Zelda. Played Twilight Princess like a lot. Really loved that game. Um, but like the launch was kind of slow for the Wii at the time. Like that was the big title, and I think the next big title was I want to say Mario Galaxy, like 6-ish months later. Um, and around that time, I got a job because I finished school, and I got like this part time job, and I saved up a bunch of money.
Nice.
And when Halo 3 came out, because that was 2007, when Halo 3 came out, they came out with a bundle, and they came out with a discounted bundle around
Oh,
that time. I don't know how, I don't know why. It was a discounted bundle. It came with Halo 3, and my friend was like, "Yo, like this place is selling it for like cheap or cheaper. Like pick it up so we can play some like Halo together." I'm like, "Fine, whatever." It's because you're asking. Otherwise, I would have never done it. Yeah, I would have never. Honestly, I would have probably never done it. And it's the only time so far that I've had all three consoles at a certain point in time. So I had the Wii, then the Wii, then the Xbox 360, and then way down the line, I picked up a PlayStation 3. Um, but yeah, so the first game that I had for that was Halo 3, and I played a lot of like the co-op story mode, and tried the multiplayer, but I suck, and you know how it is.
yeah.
Like like I knew the first thing that happened when I went online with Xbox Live when playing Halo is like some punk British kid trying to act all big and high and mighty and like oh, blah, 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 blah," or oh my gosh, do you like have you ever had like when you go online and some rando is playing loud music constantly over the mic?
That's like a standard thing that happens when you're playing Call of Duty multiplayer.
Oh my gosh,
It's so annoying. I don't
that
know
is
why
so
people do
annoying.
it.
I don't get it either. It's like, and you know they do it on purpose because I think with Xbox you had a noise gate on the microphone, so you
Hmm.
can actually turn it up or down. So like you can filter out like noise reduction. I'm pretty sure some people just turn that off on purpose so that
Yeah.
the music comes in. It's like they're trying to communicate with you, trying to insult you, but also there's loud music playing, so you don't hear what they're saying. And it's like you are just making a lot of noise. So there are a lot of people that I like blocked, muted, or reported on. It's like, yo, this guy is like being really annoying.
Yeah. It
Just
still
throw it out
happens to
there.
this day. So
Yeah.
it's yeah.
But yeah, so the Wii was really fun. There were some really killer titles that came out along the road, but it took some time for it to take off, or at least from my perspective. And it wasn't obviously until 2008 when Smash Brothers finally came out. Smash Brothers
Hmm.
Brawl was looking really forward to that. But then the reviews started coming in and they were talking about like weird mechanics that were in the game, and I was like, ugh. And then I played the game myself, and then I was like, oh yeah, this doesn't feel as this doesn't feel as snappy as Melee. And they introduced random tripping. So once in a while, the game would let you trip
Okay.
while you're playing. Like they introduced like banana peels and stuff like that into the game. So like if you use the item banana peel, you trip over a banana peel, but also at random times your character would just randomly trip. It's
Huh.
not something you could turn on or off, which is really stupid. So you could be in the middle of a game and you're like winning, and then all of a sudden you trip and fell.
Ugh.
Why? Who knows? So that was annoying. But it did have probably the best single player campaign, the Subspace Emissary.
What,
Um,
Super Smash Brothers?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know it had a single player.
Yeah, like I mean, it has all of them have had single player to a
Oh,
certain
I didn't even
extent.
know.
So like the original single player for Smash is just the classic mode where you have like you have your normal fights, but you also have like special condition fights, and then you have special like missions. Like for example, in Melee, you had race to the finish and break the targets, which I humbly miss. I miss break the targets. That was so much fun. Um, and especially back on the in Melee because every character had a unique break the targets level. With Brawl, they made it not unique. So basically, you had 4 or 5 or 6 generic break the target levels for all the characters, which I understand because the character roster blew up with Brawl.
Yeah.
Um, geez, like we can't even imagine how much it would blow up with Ultimate, but at the time, Brawl had like a really big roster. And yeah, so I understand why they did it, but it's also kind of a loss. So it had a lot of cool features in there. And also, jeez, it's such a, it was such a, it was a fun game, but it had its flaws. Also, the first Smash with online, it sucked. That's the only thing that's unfortunately not changed that much for Smash. The online still kind of sucks.
At this, even to this day.
Even it's way better than it used to be in Brawl, but yeah, I mean compared to other fighting games, it is not great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is kind of unfortunate. I don't know if that. I don't think that's ever gonna change for Smash Ultimate. You know, since the development team isn't there anymore. So yeah. Um, what else from that era? So I think for a really long time I didn't even pick up a new game for my Xbox because a lot of the games that I did what I did was play demos. dude, remember demos? Like
Uh,
downloadable demos?
yeah,
They're
yeah.
they're starting to make a comeback again, but back then, if you had an Xbox and unless it was like a JRPG or something like that, for most games that came out, they had demos, which is really cool because it allowed you to try a game and decide if you wanted to pick it up or not. That's how I ended up buying some games for the Xbox. Like for example, okay, I did say like most JRPGs didn't get one, but this one did, and it's what's it called again? Eternal Sonata. It's from the same makers from Star Ocean and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
And it's about this. Well, it's not about this random guy. It's actually about like both. I think it was it was it
Mozart?
Mozart? Yeah, I think it was Mozart that was like transported to another world
Okay.
um, while he was in his deathbed. Yeah, it's very Japanese. But
I have
it's
noticed.
a really fun game. It's a really fun JRPG. And I played the demo first and I was like, "Oh, this is fun. I need to get it." That's why I got it. I do regret to say that I haven't finished that one. I do want to finish that one someday, but also kind of hoping it gets a remastered release someday. I don't know if it'll happen. I don't think it'll happen, but it would be nice if it did. So that's one of the few games that I bought for the Xbox 360. I bought a lot of games for my Wii. Like I still have like my whole Wii collection. I'm actually looking at it right now, and it's like a whole bookshelf full. And then,
Oh, damn.
yeah, man.
I
Like
still have my PS3 games as well.
I, I have my PS3 library is way smaller. Like for that generation, it's probably the smallest library I have because most of the stuff I bought digitally or was a PlayStation Plus release.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Uh, so even though I didn't have a PlayStation 3, when PlayStation Plus was announced,
But
sorry,
PlayStation
no,
Plus
I'm
back
saying,
then was a supplemental service. You had to pay for it.
yeah, sorry, I'm saying it the other way around. I mean, before I got a PlayStation 4, I was claiming PlayStation 4 titles. No, but for PlayStation 3, when I got a PlayStation 3, also got PlayStation Plus because I wanted the free games. And at that time, I also had the Vita. So,
Mm,
it kind of worked
okay.
in tandem for that. So, a lot of games for my PlayStation are digital ones that are only available through PlayStation Plus. Except for a handful of games that I bought. I bought like the Naruto games. Like there was like this bundle, so I bought that. I bought Lollipop Chainsaw from the makers from No More Heroes. So
Oh, I remember
Grasshopper
No More
Manufacturer.
Heroes.
I still to this day have never taken the shrink wrap off that game.
Oh, wow.
It's so crazy, and I bought it like on the cheap too. I bought it like for I don't know, like $10 because it was like on sale. I think it was like in a sales bin. I was like, oh, okay. And I bought it, brought it home. It's like I'm gonna play this, and like it's been collecting dust. It's still in the wrapper. I did pick up uh MGS4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that too. I got like the platinum edition, so it's the discounted version.
Mm.
I also haven't finished that one. I did finish like I think I talked about it last time, but I did finish like Metal Gear Solid 2 and I started Metal Gear Solid 3. But
Amateur. You have so many games to play in that franchise.
I know. Like I started playing and then the cutscenes happened and it was taking a bit long. I was like, okay, I'll get back to this and I never got back to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's yes, I mean for me like that era of gaming signals the era that the start of like the download stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
Because it
you
was
had
all new.
exactly you had like Virtual Console, you had like
Yeah.
PSN, you had Xbox Live. There's so many Xbox Live arcade games that I used to play. The funny part is I have an Xbox One S right now, and I thought I had a lot of
A
games.
1S or a Series S?
Sorry, a Series S, not One S. Series S. Thank you for correcting me.
I didn't know. I was just checking. Like, huh?
No, I never owned an Xbox One. But the weird thing is that I checked my library there, and I have access to my old like purchases
Hmm.
from Xbox Live, and either I didn't purchase as much as I thought, or a lot of them have not made the they a lot of them did not get the backwards compatibility treatment.
It could be because it's limited.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so I think it is limited, and of course demos don't count, so they didn't bring those over, which kind of sucks because there were a lot of. I had a lot. I think if I booted up my Xbox 360, there's still a lot of demos on there that is like really good. Um, and there was this guy that I went to that I did my course, my 3D animation course with, who was getting rid of his Xbox 360, and he was like, "Hey, I know you have an Xbox 360. I just sold mine, and I still have like a bunch of games. Like, I'll give it to you for like $15." And it was like Devil May Cry 4, uh, the first Bayonetta, and a bunch of other games. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll take them
Nice.
off your hands.
Yeah.
But that's also the first time I played Bayonetta 3 of 3. That's the first time I played Bayonetta 1. There's also a bunch of other games. Like I bought like this random bundle that came with Call of Duty. Oh
Which one?
right. Was it Modern Warfare 2? I think it was Modern Warfare 2. The reason I bought it is because it came with Modern Warfare and a like an exclusive, because it was like one of those collector's edition, and it came
Okay.
like with this like spy camera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I still have it around here, but I think the battery is shot. Like whenever I charge it, it works for like maybe 10 minutes or so, and then it just doesn't work. The quality is surprisingly good, but it's also Fish Island, so
Oh.
it's not really fun to use as like an actual camera. But it was fun that it got added to them. I was like, okay, cool, I'll take it. Um, what else? The Wii era was so weird for me because between like the fixed like between like the games that you could just buy, you know, your Mario's, your Pikmin, stuff like that. I bought a lot of virtual console games because it was a good time. It was, if you were a retro gamer, you were eating well in the Wii era. There were so many like retro consoles on virtual console. Yet, apart from the standard stuff, like Nintendo stuff, but you also had like Turbo Graphics. You had eventually had like Sega Mega Drive. You had like a bunch of other stuff. It was just, you were eating well. Like if you were into like stuff like that. Um, some of the highlights from that period, you had of course that you had of course Ease Book 1 and 2 for like the Turbo Graphics. You could buy the first Street Fighter, which was only on Turbo Graphics, which is like you could either play as Ryu or Ken, and this is
Okay.
like the Ryu like with the slippers on, like like with the ninja gi and everything. It was so silly. You had, of course, you had the Sonic games. You had a bunch of classics that people would know and remember, and of course, they had their own like WiiWare, which is the most ridiculous thing on the earth because if I don't know if you remember, but the Wii had like barely any storage.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
the
like
internals,
2 gigabytes or something, or even less?
no, the
Or was it the
internals,
Wii U?
the Wii U had 8 or 32 gigabyte models. The
Oh,
Wii had 250, the 512 megabytes.
wow. So how did you add storage?
SD cards, my friend.
Oh my god. Wow.
And here's the thing: when it first came out, you couldn't even play games off the SD card. They had to
Oh
bring
damn.
an update to allow you to play from the SD card.
Wow. I remember like the PS2 when it first came out, or the PS3,
Yeah.
like you had the 20 gigabyte model in the States, which didn't include Wi Fi. You had the 60 gigabyte model, which was like everything. But
Hmm.
here in Europe, they only did the 60 gigabyte model, but the hard drives were user replaceable. So
Yeah.
I don't remember. But then again, I didn't buy any digital games during the PS3 era. I only bought one digital game during the PS3 era, and that was The Last of Us. And that was because I couldn't get it physically because it was sold out everywhere, which I never
Wow.
had happen with a game. Yeah. I remember just wanted to go to a store and buy it, and I didn't see it. It was like don't you have it?" It's like, "Yeah, it's sold out." And then I thought like, but this has never happened, you know? And then The Last of Us was my first, full-fledged, digital game on the PS3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was completely surprised.
Dang. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah. So if something like that happened to the Wii, you're like out of luck. 'Cause
yeah.
there's no way to buy that digitally.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause
Oh.
and as soon as we got to PS4, like, a lot of games started utilizing the hard drive more, but that's also more because in the PS3 era, Xbox 360 users didn't all have a hard drive. You could still be like one of those persons that had the Xbox 360 without hard drive with a memory card, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was still a thing back then. So the developers couldn't.
What did they call that again? The base,
I don't know.
the
Yeah.
core
Oh, the
core
core edition.
system.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, jeez, Louise.
Yeah. Yeah, and it didn't have Wi-Fi, so you had to add like a Wi-Fi module. Like only when they did the Xbox 360
360
Elite,
Elite. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah.
one had built-in Wi-Fi and stuff like that, and like a bigger hard drive. Because I remember I got the Elite
Yeah.
in like a random impulse mode because I wanted to play all the Halos and Gears of War. So I got a 360 Elite, and then um, I bought all those games, so Halo and Gears of War, and I finished them all.
Mm,
And then I didn't use the Xbox for years, you know, because
yeah.
the games on Xbox simply didn't appeal. And I had the same thing happen during the PS4 era, where I bought an Xbox One and a One S, and I played it for a couple of games, and then I never touched it again.
Did you get the VCR model?
No, no, no. I had the One S, the white one. The
Okay. Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Man, that was a weird time. That was a super weird time because the first, technically, the first one out of the gate when that came around was the Wii U, and
Did
they,
it?
yeah, because that came out at the end of 2012.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, because the PS3 came out. PS4 came out in 2013.
Yep, like a whole year later. And I remember the reason why I remember it distinctly because they announced the Wii in 2011 at E3, and they made a whole big buzz about it. They had like
You mean the
all
Wii U?
these, sorry, the Wii U, right?
Okay.
They had this big buzz about it. They were showing off these developers talking about the capabilities of the Wii U, blah blah blah. They didn't show a single frame of gameplay until I want to say the following E3, or there was like no, sorry, there was like a direct like 9 months later, like in January or February or something, and they showed off some games like what's it called again, Metro. Like I think at that time it was Metro 2033 or something, and
Oh, that game, yeah.
um a bunch of other like titles that never came to the Wii U, by the way. They were
Oh.
announced, but they never showed up on the Wii U.
Oh,
Because
great.
apparently they miscalculated on like the capabilities of the Wii U, so they stopped developing or whatever. And like there was like this whole thing with like, oh, so when they announced the Wii U, there was this whole thing like with EA and I think John Riccatelli was still in charge,
Yeah.
and he was like unprecedented like partnership with Nintendo and EA never happened.
Oh, damn.
Like a whole like for at least 2 years, people were making fun of that whole unprecedented partnership with EA, and when those Wii U was gonna come out, they announced that the Wii U was getting Mass Effect 3 because it had come out in 2012 earlier for the other platforms. And they were like, oh yeah, Wii U exclusive, like with extra content and like Wii U features. And when that was announced, shortly after that, the Trilogy Pack was also announced that had all the games.
But did it come out on Wii?
It did come out on Wii,
Oh, I didn't.
just
Okay.
Mass Effect 3. Not the trilogy that came out a week later on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360.
Oh, wow.
It's like, so why is this not coming to Wii U? It can clearly handle it. And they had no answers. Like, oh yeah, this is that like unprecedented partnership at work.
It's probably install based. They're like, it's not worth porting this whole thing
It was
over.
just like the Wii U was just out. Like what install base? You're starting fresh.
Oh yeah,
You're like starting on the like the ground level. You could have just like like
yeah,
kicked the door open, but no.
yeah.
Yeah, that was
To be honest, I don't know anything about the Wii U because I skipped out on I don't know a lot about the Wii, but I at least tried the Wii a couple of times. But like the Wii U, I cannot remember anything about it because I simply didn't follow anything. I was like, I really couldn't care less about this console. This is another weird Nintendo thingy. We'll let them do whatever they want to do because everybody was gearing up for the next generation, and nobody knew what it was until Sony had that special event in February of 2013
Mhm,
in New York, and nobody knew what was going to happen. But I remember the teaser leading up to it because they had this um, teaser in which they a couple of days in a row or like a couple of weeks in a row they released this vague video in which they in every video they celebrated like a PlayStation franchise, and for some it was like the 10th anniversary or something like that. So everybody knew back then like, okay, this is a PlayStation related event.
mm.
And then the event started, and then Mark Cerny came up, or at least first, what's his name?
Uh,
Andrew House. I think
oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
Andrew
yeah.
House. Yeah, the former PS executive back then, the CEO, and he did like this whole thing, and he said, "Okay, we're gonna focus on PS4, and to tell you more about it, we have the system architect Mark Cerny." And then they came up with the whole stuff like, "Hey, we used off the shelf parts. We're not doing any crazy cell architecture stuff. It's just basically your x86 architecture. It's basically like a PC." And they showed like a lot of games back then, and for the
Mhm,
time that was so like every time they show a new generation you're like, wow, okay, this is amazing. But I still remember back then when they showed a lot of stuff came really close to photorealism back then
mhm.
because you weren't used to that level of detail and graphics. I was like, whoa, because I mean, during PS3, Uncharted, for example, looked amazing,
Yeah,
but this was like on a whole nother level. They showed off Destiny for the first time because Destiny was that rumored game, and a lot of stuff had leaked out because of Destiny, because of the lawsuit between Activision and I think was it Microsoft, or there was like this Activision
yeah, yeah,
lawsuit, and like a lot of details regarding Destiny leaked out because Bungie was working with Activision. So everybody knew stuff about Destiny, but they'd never seen it.
yeah,
And back then you got to see it, and the promise was basically like Halo Online in an online persistent universe,
yeah.
But and you were like, whoa,
The
okay.
10-year plan.
Exactly. Yeah, the 10-year plan, and and then they showed stuff like Watch Dogs, which looked amazing, I was like, I really want Watch Dogs. That
Yeah,
was one of the
Ubisoft
reasons
magic.
yeah, that's one of the reasons I bought my PlayStation, and they postponed that stuff. But also Assassin's Creed Black Flag was announced that year, and The Division was announced that year. So like I feel that the start of the PS4 generation was like a lot of people were doing a lot of new stuff instead of just carrying over their existing IP. Eventually, people were like, "Yo, where are the existing IPs? Because we also want like existing IP games instead of all new IPs." But because it took a couple of years for Uncharted 4 to come out, for example.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
true.
was a crazy time.
Yeah, and then Xbox kind of pooped the bed.
Well, in such a big way, I think nobody expected that
Yo, the here's the thing, right? Because I don't know if you remember watching that like presentation.
on the Xbox campus.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
remember this was a time where they were like 100% into Connect.
yeah,
So they were like, yeah, it's gonna come like with the Connect, and you're gonna do like gestures and voice commands, and you'll be able to snap like your TV. You can watch TV while you're playing games, or vice versa.
yeah,
And like that's the only thing that I do find that was impressive. Like you could snap like video while you were watching TV, and like you could play a game. That
yeah.
was a pretty cool concept. But
They
everything was like entertainment this and blah blah blah. And
they
just,
took the center of your living room idea a little bit too literal, and they went a bit
yeah.
too deep down that rabbit hole. Because I think the reason they were all in on Connect was because of the success of Wii, of course. PlayStation came up with the PlayStation Move, which
Hmm.
in a way it was good. I had a Move, I liked it, and Xbox's answer was Connect, but it was all, of course, optional. So they probably thought, well, let's take away the optional part. Let's make this forced on everybody, and
Mandatory.
mandatory. And then they also said, like, we're gonna do online DRM. Your Xbox needs to connect once every 24 hours to the internet. And like that's when they basically they didn't even dig their own grave. They basically buried themselves alive at that point, because everybody's like, okay, it's done. You can't recover from this one. And Sony
Yep.
took a lot of advantage of that.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that E3 where they where was it a no, it wasn't. I wanted to say Shuhei Yoshida, but it wasn't Yoshida. It
Yeah, it was Yoshida.
was it
He
Yoshida
made that video with
with
Adam Boyles, where
yeah.
they like, this is how you would use used games or lend a game to a friend, and then it was like step one, and then there, gee, thanks, they just gave it to each other. But like that E3 was there, Sony hit all the marks there, because they first did that video, and then they
Yeah.
said, hey, we will not do online DRM. And then they also said, we're not going to do crazy price. It's going to be $3.99. And then the day after, Microsoft came out, and I had no the day before Microsoft had
Yeah.
their event, and they said $4.99. And
Yeah.
then, like, I remember multiple times during the PlayStation conference back then, people just went wild, like screaming crazy wild, because I think people might have had heart attacks because of the excitement, because they were like, that was the best E3 they ever did.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a really good. It was a really good. It was a really good E3 for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody was just looking at Xbox and like, you no,
Before,
you haven't earned our trust yet.
exactly, they replaced Don Metric eventually. They were like, yeah, when they got to launch, they're like, yeah, we can't do it with this guy. He's out.
Yo, Don Matrix really screwed the pooch, man. Like
Yeah,
really.
exactly. Yeah.
So, that was a weird time.
Yeah, and like it's not long ago when we had the PS4, and we still have the PS4, but there were so many good games that came out on PS4, and you'll probably have that with the Switch. But like we had Horizon Zero Dawn, we had The Last of Us Part Two, as controversial as it is. We had Ghost of Tsushima. We had, I liked it personally. We had Knack. We had Uncharted
Did you
4.
play Knack 2?
I haven't played Knack 2. I only played one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had the Uncharted 4. We had the Division 1 and 2, which, I mean, I liked the Division. It had its issues, but I still liked it. We got the great Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Origins. Yeah, the what was the one in Paris called? Unity was a bit meh,
Hmm.
but like all I
Syndicate.
Syndicate was, I mean, like, I feel that the PS4 generation was Ubisoft at its best, even
Yeah.
though it was a constant, we'll promise you the world, but we'll give you something completely else kind of message, because they always had to downgrade their games, or they always had to patch their games. Like they had the whole Rainbow Six Siege debacle, where the game was a complete mess when it came out, but they made up, and a lot of people enjoyed it. And same for Honor, complete mess
Yeah.
when it came out, and now it's an amazing game.
Hmm.
So you know, and I think that the problem with that approach is they are suffering from it now, because during the PS5 generation this year they're kind of basically screwed, because they have one game that they're basically riding all their hopes on, all their eggs in one basket, and that's it, and that's Assassin's Creed Mirage. And
Wait, you mean Ubisoft?
yeah, I
Okay.
mean, there's
Okay.
nothing else coming out that's like, oh,
Yeah. Oh, I thought you meant play. So Sony. I was like, wait,
oh,
what?
no, 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 no.
No, because Sony has a lot going on. So like for me that was a way more different experience, going into 2013, because at that time they had like the port of Assassin's Creed 3 on Wii U, and I will say to this day that version of Assassin's Creed 3 is probably the best version that you can play because of the second screen stuff.
Mm.
There's like you had like minimal UI stuff on the screen, so you could experience the game more fully and more immersively.
Oh, that's cool.
Like everything else was like on your second screen in your hands. Granted, it's a bulky controller.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that especially when you did sailing, you could see where you are, and you could like you can make better tactical decisions while you were sailing and like doing the naval combat stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's also the reason why like they also had that zombie U game,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
I
very
remember.
unique, which I honestly I've never gotten that far with that game because the game is it's very roguelike. So whenever you die, that's it. That character that you played with is like dead, right? So you always start as a new character, but your
Yeah.
character that you played with that died becomes a zombie with all your stuff that you gathered. So you have to hunt down your zombie, get your stuff back, and then continue like trying to escape the infected London. I have never beaten that game. The game did get a port to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One back then. I think in 2000, like years later, like in 2016 or something like that. They got ported, and like the Wii U had like a bunch of games that were impressive. A lot of them got ported to Switch and to other consoles. So, like for example, Wonderful 101 from Platinum Games. Of course, Bayonetta 1 and 2 got ported to Wii U. I mean, Bayonetta 2 was new and exclusive to Wii U. Um, you had like the Zelda ports, you know, from Twilight Princess HD, Wind Waker HD, which is flipping gorgeous. Of course, Smash 4 for Wii U and for 3DS. You had a bunch of art games that came out that I'm trying to think about. Pikmin 3 was awesome on Wii U. Uh, Damn, I'm trying to think about all the
I
other
don't
games
know
on
any
there.
of these games. Like I've heard of them but never seen them.
uh, Super Mario Maker, the one
Hmm.
where you can make your own Mario levels and share them with people. Miiverse, okay, like how do I explain this when it doesn't exist anymore in a world where Twitter sucks even more than it does? So Miiverse was Nintendo's own social media kind of platform for the Wii U and for the to a lesser extent the 3DS,
Okay.
where you had like forums and stuff for each individual game had its own page where people could like post hints, talk about the game. Some games had interactions with the Miiverse. So for example, uh, if you were playing Splatoon, the first Splatoon, you could like draw stuff in Miiverse and it would share with other people and it would populate in your game, which is really cool. Some games used it as a hint system, like so New Super Mario Brothers U. You could give hints of like what this level is, what you could expect from it. With Mario Maker, like I was saying before, you could share the levels with other people, but people could also comment on your levels and it would
Hmm.
show up either in the forum or in game, which was really cool. And then they shut it down when they announced the Switch, which is super weird. I kind of feel like the reason why they did it was the same reason why um, a certain feature on the 3DS was also shuttered, which is what was it called? Flip note. What's it called? It was a note messenger where you could send like 3D messages to one another, but they had to shut it down because people were abusing it. The same thing kind of happened with Miiverse, where people were abusing Miiverse and posting stuff that they shouldn't. So Nintendo was like, "Yeah, we're sunsetting this. You can still get your stuff if you want to, but you better be quick. If you're not quick, you're gonna miss out, and then all your stuff that you ever put out on Miiverse is gone." I'm pretty sure I still have my Miiverse stuff on my computer, but I'd have to check. It's been a while since I booted up my PC. Maybe I put it on. Gosh, I hope I didn't put it in an external hard drive because then it's lost forever. But yeah, it was so much fun. I really do miss Miiverse because it was such a cool implementation of like user interaction and like gameplay stuff and just like bringing it together in such a nice way. It was something really of its time. But yeah, the Wii U did not last long. Rest in peace, 13 million sale. Worst Nintendo worst Nintendo console in terms of sales, not in terms of games, because the games were actually solid. Um, but yeah,
Many will never know because they didn't buy a Wii U.
that is unfortunately true. I can't argue with that. It is absolutely true. But what is also true is that the Switch is on its way to being one of the best sold consoles. It's at number 3 right now. It still
I think
needs
the best selling is the PS2, and that's
the
like
best
at
selling is still PS2, but it's only
yeah.
I think it's only like 20 or so million away from that.
Oh, it will probably get it will pass it because
Yeah, because it still needs to beat the DS, which is I think at 20, I want to say 126 million. And I think the PlayStation 2 was how many? Like 140
I, I
something
think
million?
it crossed 150, but let me check.
I forget. But yeah, like the PlayStation 2 sold like crazy numbers. Um like
155
yeah, okay, so
million.
155. I think the DS was is behind that
Yeah.
still. So yeah,
I
there's
mean,
still
yeah, well,
yeah, so there's at least I think 27 million left to go because the Switch is at 122.
wow.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? For
Yeah.
something for something that is underpowered and is a portable hybrid console game
Yeah, but I think
system.
that it kind of proves the point that if you have the games, you can. It
Yeah, if you
doesn't
have the
matter
games, the
because
people
that's
will come.
yeah, but that's probably the reason why Stadia failed. Besides the business model, they didn't have any games to incentivize people to play on Stadia. They didn't have
Yeah.
like exclusives that made people want to get into the ecosystem.
Exactly, which is still very disappointing because I mean we've both tried Stadia, right?
Yeah,
When they first did, and it works really well. Sorry, it worked really well.
yeah.
Um,
Rest in peace, Stadia.
Rest in peace, Stadia. At least people got their refunds, and they got to
Yeah,
keep the controller.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I think they also released like this driver update now that you
Yeah,
can
so you can use it
make
as a
it a
regular
Bluetooth.
controller, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, what else are people gonna do with it? Like a paperweight? Hmm.
use it as a boomerang, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like I still have my PS4, and the funny thing is, I was just thinking about it when you said it about the second screen thing. Like, I do remember when the PS4 first came out, it was in that moment where they were all the manufacturers were trying to play into the second screen part because
Yeah.
gamers were playing on their mobiles or on their tablets. So like a lot of games got like this mobile app feature. So Battlefield 4 got like the commander mode where you would download a separate app onto your iPad, and from there you would be the commander in the battlefield. So you could launch missile strikes, you could deploy supplies, you could do that stuff. Or in Assassin's Creed, you had like a Black Flag, you had like a map you could have on your tablet, but you could also do like side missions on the tablet where you could have like this fleet that you amass, and then you could send your fleet to do missions that would give you resources. Or the promise for the division was that you would be able to control a drone that is in game
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
your
I
tablet.
remember
They
that.
never did it, but they said it. Well, like I remember, like the first 2 years, maybe
I think
games
they
had
did
like
something for that for I think they promised something like that for Watch Dogs too.
yeah, yeah. So like the first 2 years, games had that, and then immediately after that was like, bomb, it's gone. Because everybody knew like people are not waiting for this stuff.
Yeah.
People just want to play the games. There's no need to involve a second screen because there was basically no one that could pull off the implementation properly. Like if possible, the only thing I would want is like if I'm playing a multiplayer game or an open world game, is to have the map on my tablet so I can have it in
Mm,
front of me so that I don't have to press the select button or the menu button constantly. It takes me out of the experience. So that's like the only thing I would want.
yeah. Like speaking of like second screen stuff through mobile, remember Xbox Glass? Or was it Microsoft Glass or what was that app
I
called?
don't even remember. It sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, so it's basically like this general app that did what you said instead of having individual apps for
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
It was
Or like
I,
yeah,
like I do remember that by the time I got a smartphone, that feature was well and dead because I
yeah.
think they actually started with that functionality with the Xbox 360.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like from a software point of view, Microsoft did innovated a lot during that era. They added like a lot of stuff, but it was all like a bit hit and miss because
yeah,
some things worked really well or some things sounded really cool and some things just didn't work out because in the end I think people are like, when I'm behind the TV playing on my console, I want that to be my full center of attention. I don't want all sorts of side devices adding into this experience. I just want my controller to be my main point of input, and that's it. I don't want something else. Yeah.
You missed out, man. And Wii U had some really cool functionalities when it came to games.
It sounds like from a like it sounds really cool. Like when you're playing an open world game and you can manage your backpack on your tablet and swap out weapons or stuff like that. Like that sounds really cool. But we had a touchpad that we could do stuff on. And in some games the touchpad had like really great implementation. So for example, in Ghost of Tsushima, if you want to have you don't have like a navigational way. So it's not like you pick a navigation point and it will lead you there through. I don't know. Like in some games, it's like a Google Maps kind of idea. But here it would be like the direction of the wind. So you would swipe on the a touchpad, and the wind would blow in a certain direction, and you would know, okay, that's the direction I have to go to get to my target. Or
Yeah,
to my mission, and it like worked really well. It was really intuitive because you would hear this subtle wind sound and you would see like the wind gushing and you were like, oh, okay, I need to go left.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are some cool implementations. I do remember playing. Uh, I want to I want to say I was playing. I don't think that I don't. Damn it! What game was it? I wanted to say Uncharted, but I don't think the remastered stuff Uncharted actually implemented touchpad stuff. But like there are some games on the PlayStation 4 that indeed had some cool implementation of the touchpad,
Yeah.
but that's also because that was lifted from Vita, where you had like, for example, like Tearaway, where you were like poking through the back of the Vita, and you saw
Yeah.
your finger come out. The really cool thing that particular game did was, and I don't know how they did this because I'm still not 100% sure I ever gave them this information. But when I poked through the back of like whenever you could poke through the back of the game world,
Yeah.
you would see a finger.
Yeah.
This finger was my skin color.
Oh, damn.
I don't know how they did it. I assume it is the camera,
Yeah, I think so as well.
but I don't know how it does it in the dark because it was still that. So I don't know if it got it from somewhere else. Maybe I put it in a profile thing or something. I don't know. But my finger was black, and it's like, okay, that was pretty cool. Unfortunately, I did port Tearaway to, I think, PlayStation 4,
Yeah.
and it used the touchpad, so I don't know if it worked in the exact same way.
I don't know. I never
Um,
played it. I hear it's a great game, but I never played it.
it's a really fun game. I actually beat it from start to finish.
Hmm.
Um, then you have Gravity Days, which also used the touchpad,
Yeah.
which also got ported to the PlayStation 4. It's a really fun game. It's a really cool game. Like if you don't have that game, it's total recommend. Also, it's one of the last couple of games that Sony Studios, Sony Japan Studios ever made,
Yeah, because
which
starting
also
with the
doesn't exist
PS5, they were like,
anymore.
yeah,
Yeah,
they got shut down. Yeah.
they were big in the PlayStation 2 era.
Hmm?
Like they made a
Yeah.
lot of the weird, quirky PlayStation games.
Yeah.
That was them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were wondering why Ape Escape doesn't exist, there's your answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I was just thinking that um I still have my PS4. I have the PS4 Pro because that's also the first time Sony did like a mid-generation upgrade,
Hmm.
and that's also I think it's I don't know if they always intended to do it. I wonder if they were maybe not fueled or pushed because Microsoft did it first. Because one E3 they just announced the Scarlet,
Yeah.
and nobody there were rumors that was going to happen, but nobody expected it. And then at the level of power that the Scarlet had, it was like double the power or almost triple the power of what the Xbox One had.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Sony, because if you look at what Sony did, they basically took the same hardware, but they just made it. They improved the clock speeds and they added faster memory, and they did checkerboard rendering instead of full 4K. So it always felt like Sony just responding to Microsoft instead of just having this already planned. And maybe it might explain why
I
a lot
kind
of
of had the
PS4 Pros were
same.
jet engines because they were like really loud. I mean, like if you think about it, if you design it from the ground up,
Yeah,
you
then
probably
you would
would have
have
thought,
this. Yeah, you would have that
yeah,
in mind. Yeah.
because now basically it was like a PS4 on steroids. Like they injected it with steroids, and then it just became what it is. And yeah, you know, yeah, like with the PS5, they took a completely different approach.
Yeah. Now you have liquid metal that's apparently sliding off the processor.
I don't know about that. Yeah,
um yeah, I mean the I mean I have a PlayStation. I have like a base PlayStation 4, so not even like the slim because I bought mine from a friend. And yeah, I mean, I played a lot of games on there. Like I said, a lot of games that I had on there are from PlayStation Plus because I had the PlayStation 3 and I had the PlayStation app, so I was just like, "Oh yeah, it's time for PlayStation Plus stuff." Add, add. I will play this someday, and I did because the first thing that I played was Infamous Second Son, the standalone DLC
great game,
for
great game.
sorry, not Second Son,
First
the
Light.
other one, First Light, the standalone stuff. Relatively short,
I
but
never played First
really
Light.
good.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, I
I mean,
have it,
you've
but
played Second Son, right?
yeah, 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 I love
Yeah,
Second Son.
yeah. It's basically more of that. I,
I hope
also,
that they do another Infamous, but
would they? I mean, they're doing Spider Man now, so why would they?
yeah, but they also do Ghost of Tsushima, so
No,
they're
but that
probably working
no
on
that
Ghost of Tsushima too.
wait wait who did Infamous? Was it
Sucker
Sucker Punch?
Punch, yeah, and
Oh
they
wait,
did Ghost of
I
Tsushima
thought
as
it was
well.
I thought it was Infamous.
Insomniac.
Insomniac. Uh,
Oh,
all right, no, because they're the Ratchet and Clank guys
yeah, and Resistance.
and Resistance. Wow, do you think that's ever gonna come back?
I don't know. I mean, like it's I didn't finish Resistance 3, but I finished 1 and 2 and I really enjoyed those.
There was a 3?
Yeah.
Wait, for the PlayStation 4, right?
No, also for the PS3.
Really?
But the problem with the Resistance always was that it was really good games and they reviewed really well, but they didn't
Mm,
sell well. So
yeah.
that's maybe the reason why they're not keen to do another one.
Yeah,
But
probably.
plus, if you look at what Insomniac's doing now, they're doing Spider-Man 2 and they're doing Wolverine. So they have their hands full.
That's true. I wonder
Yeah.
what Sucker Punch is gonna work on next, though.
The rumor is that they're working on Ghost of Tsushima too,
Okay, I
which
don't.
wouldn't be bad because, I mean, I recently started playing the Iki Island expansion and just
Mhm.
reminds me about how good that game is. Like
Yeah, but how
I
did
had
that game end?
Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, you don't have to say anything
No,
that
no, no, but
spoils
it
it,
has
but
like a so it. Let me put it this way: the story concludes,
Mhm,
but there's like loads of other opportunities for them to proceed with another story because like for Iki Island, it's a separate
mhm,
island. So how the Iki Island part gets woven into the main story is you go to this little place along the coast, and then suddenly you notice that people are reacting very strange. It looks like they're being hypnotized or something is affecting them, and that they're going berserk because of it. And then you find Mongolians that you have to fight, and then you interrogate one, and then he's like, "Yeah, you will never defeat us because the grand shaman, blah blah blah, will come. The eagle, yada yada." And then you're like, "Okay, who is this eagle person?" And then you find out that they're on Iki Island, and then you have to go to Iki Island to defeat this remnant Mongolian faction. So um, even if they don't go with the Mongolians, they could just go on with a completely different storyline. I mean, the world's so big.
I'm more surprised that they brought in the supernatural stuff.
I don't know what it's about, but like they it's kind of a theme for Sucker Punch to do that because back in the day with Infamous 2, they released a standalone DLC called the Festival of Blood, which
Ooh,
basically
that
was
one looked
like
cool.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was with vampires. So
yeah.
basically, Cole McGrath like bitten by a vampire in New Orleans, and during like the one of the big carnival like festivals there,
Yeah.
you were trying to hunt down the vampires and cure yourself from that. So, uh, and I think like one of the bad powers you could do was drink people's blood, because you can in that game you can choose between good and right, wrong,
Right. Yeah. Very
right or wrong.
arbitrarily choose good and right.
Yeah,
No gray areas.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, and the weird thing is Sony has a commitment that they are going to do 10 live service games between last year and 2023 or 2024,
Hmm.
and that's like a pretty bold statement because they haven't done a single live game yet. That's probably why they bought Bungie, because of the technology Bungie has. And I think one of the first games that will play into that will be the Last of Us multiplayer game that's going to come out, because
Yeah.
it's not just factions as we know it. It's like this whole standalone game, which is part of the Last of Us universe. But if we have to believe Neil Druckmann, it's going to be something crazy we haven't played before. I'm thinking maybe something like the Division, or a proper the day before kind of
Yeah.
thing. But that's one of many, and apparently there's a multiplayer Horizon game in development, of which we saw leaked footage 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Wait, did you
So
actually watch that one?
I watched a little bit of it. So,
Okay.
but it's funny because the player assets are a bit more cartoonish, Fortnite style, but they
Heard
just
something like that.
put
Yeah.
it into the Forbidden West setting. So it's weird because you see like this lifelike graphics, and then the characters like this cartoonish person, but it's meant to be played together with friends. So I mean, that's already two games that we know of that at least. I think there are rumors that Sony's working on a SOCOM game that's also being done by Guerrilla. So there's plenty of stuff that they're doing, and at the same time, they're still doubling down on single player games, which is their bread and butter. Um, and like if you look at last year with PS5, you can definitely
Mm.
see that we got Horizon Forbidden West and we got God of War Ragnarok. Ragnarok is, I think, the best selling IP at this moment for Sony. It sold 11 million.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy, and they will keep churning out those type of games because they know people. That's the reason why you buy a PlayStation.
Yeah.
You're not buying it for Game Pass. You're not buying it you're not buying it for Halo Infinite, because obviously that one's not doing well as doing good as well. So you know,
Yeah. Yeah. True. I mean, I guess for PlayStation, it's a bit more different than for Xbox or for Switch in that regard. Um, and yeah, I mean, PlayStation 5, there's a lot of hidden potential with both consoles, right? With both Xbox Series and for PlayStation 5. I don't feel like we're really noticing that though. There's not like I haven't seen any games that I'm like, okay, it's very like it's very cool, or like you're showing off specific features, because even like with, for example, the new Hogwarts Legacy game, there apparently are loading screens. Like when you walk through certain doors, it has
hmm
to load like the environment, which is weird to me, because the
yeah,
whole point of like the new consoles is super fast loading. You don't have to load the
exactly,
internet.
yeah.
Yeah, and even with the game, one of the games that I'm playing now on my Xbox Series S is Hi-Fi Rush, and even that has like a loading screen. It's short, yes, but there's still loading screens.
Yeah, because the funny part is that with God of War and with Horizon Forbidden West, I cannot remember a loading screen while I was playing unless I died,
Yeah,
or unless I booted up the game for the first time again. But otherwise, it was pretty seamless. And now the funny thing is, I've become spoiled where I get to the point where I see a loading screen, I'm like, what's this? So that's weird, and it also I noticed that I'm becoming really impatient because you're used to that instant action, and now you're suddenly like, and um part of it is because they use streaming tech, of course, and normally they do that combined with the disc. Well, I don't have a disc edition, so all has to be done all locally. So I didn't know Hogwarts had this because it's a bit surprised. But Hogwarts does have a lot more issues, and maybe the day one patch will fix it. But I heard that on PC, for example, the textures aren't really that great. the colors are off. So like the PC version is not the best version to play at the moment. That's apparently the PS5 version until Digital Foundry will give us the technical analysis. But
Looking forward to that.
there's like a lot of stuff going on, and I'm like, well, at least I'm happy the game reviewed well, because I didn't expect it to review well.
Neither
I
did
was
I.
thinking like us, maybe it would get a 7, and it's getting like 9, so I'm really happy with that. Um,
I think part of it is nostalgia fueled because a lot of people love Harry Potter.
yeah,
So I think that's part of the because at least from all the reviews that I've seen and read, they'll have their minus points and then they'll be add a qualifier. But this is the Harry Potter world, or
yeah,
something like that,
yeah,
and it's like, oh, okay, that's where this is going. All right, I gotcha.
yeah.
But at least so far, the public with just with one weird random exception. Well, not really an exception. It's mostly just because J.K. Rowling and her thoughts. People are kind of being jerks about the game, which has nothing to do with her. So yeah, other than that, actually has been received quite well, which is
Yeah.
yeah, which is more than I can say for I don't know for Spoken.
Yeah, but again, with Forspoken, I saw it coming. That's why, like, I didn't even bother playing the demo. Didn't even bother watching the trailers, because I with some games, I just sometimes think like, "Wah," I've been surprised in the past. Like, for example, Shadow of Mordor, when it was first announced, was like, this looks really cool, but this looks too good to be true. And then it came out and it got a 9, because it was basically like an underdog, and I was like, okay, I need to buy this because I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. And that's one of those games from the PS4 era that I remember fondly, that like had this effect on me. It was like, oh damn, okay, I like. But now more and more games have gotten more expensive, so you only get to spend your $80 or your $70 one time. So
Mhm.
you're at least for me, especially with the digital edition, I'm not like last year. Last year was a bad year for me when it came to gaming, because I didn't play a lot. But like, I think if I played last year, I maybe might have played 10 games, maybe less. And if I
Yeah.
look at how many games I bought, it's like around that number. I bought Forbidden West, I bought God of War, I bought Modern Warfare 2, but I can't remember any other games that I bought. So, and I probably have bought some, but like, I can't remember, because that's how often I played, apparently, which I didn't. Like, the only thing I do now is I play Battlefield multiplayer, and on February 15th, when the new Warzone map comes out, which is a smaller one, I'll probably play that.
Mm.
But I just don't. I, I don't play a lot, and then if that's why I'm a lot picky when it comes to buying stuff. And then it needs to be like really good. I cannot base my 70 euros purchase off an Instagram influencer telling me it's a great game because they got it for free. Because it
Yeah.
doesn't work like that. Yeah,
Yeah. That's also I mean, I totally agree with you on that one because I also pay more attention to when there are sales, um, for like a Wii game or stuff like that. So it's like, oh, this is on sale. Okay, I'll get that. And usually you'll get pretty decent sales on the eShop. So I do that. Like I bought the Hades on sale on the eShop this holiday, and Hades is so friggin' good.
I love that game. Yeah.
Hades is so gosh darn good. I'm so sorry that I like slept on that game for like a year.
Well, you're at least on time, because the sequel is coming out as well.
Yeah, but it's relatively soon too.
Yeah, yeah. But that's
Yeah.
also like the thing, that we're at that generation now where um we had the Game Awards, and in the Game Awards we saw like a lot of stuff coming as well
Mm,
that's announced. So for example, Hades 2 is coming out, and you're like, okay, nice. But I can't remember the name of the game. It should have been, was scheduled for last year, it got pushed. But it's made by Patrick Sutherland, who was the head of like basically EA's worldwide studios.
mhm,
He created his own studio, and it's going to be a free to play game on consoles and PC. It got shown off at the Game Awards a couple of years ago, where it's on this planet. I think it was Earth, and it was a little bit like a spacey theme where stuff would crash onto the planet, and then
mm.
suddenly random these people will just come into action and head at it. I can't remember what the game is called, but like that's also one of those games where you're like, oh yes, I think there's a lot of games that we're not aware of that got announced and that are
Yeah.
like eventually like, oh damn, it's coming out, because yeah, suddenly they're coming. Like there's another game coming out, Atomic Hearts, which is basically like a Bioshock set in this Soviet Union like era setting.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, that little game looks actually pretty cool. But there again, I am like, I hope it's going to be good, but because it's not made by a big publisher or developer that we know of, so it's like this gamble. And the same goes for the day before. Like it looks like the perfect game. The Division meets The Last of Us, but again, it's made by an unknown developer, unknown publisher. You're like, this looks too good to be true, you know?
Yeah. Uh, so with all that said, right? We've talked about like our experiences basically from if people have listened to the previous episodes all the way up to where we are right now. So then my question comes to this before we like wrap things up is we're now in the middle of the the current generation for like PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series. The Switch is in its 6th year. Crazy. It's like next year it's going to be 7 years old and we still haven't heard anything. What do you think what are well not what do you think, but what are your hopes for the future for like what do you expect? What would you like to see in the next couple of years, the next 5 years or so?
Um, that's a good question. By the way, the game I was talking about is called Arc Raider, so just look it up.
Hmm.
If you look at the trailer, you'll be
I'll
like,
have to look
ah,
it up.
this looks
Yeah.
really cool. I've said this before. I think either this generation or the next generation that will come after this will be the last physical based generation, and after that, it's done. It's all digital,
Hmm.
and it has its pros and cons. Like the pro is it's ease of use. You can probably play anywhere on any device, and it will be high quality. But you're relying either on a data connection because it's streaming tech, or it will be just an all digital edition, and you just download it to your console and you play it. But it will bring a lot of ease and convenience with it if you're in a country with a modern internet connection. So that's why I think like the next generation will be the last one, and then after that they will probably say like, okay, it's done. Um, I just hope for that we will get games that will, because now we're getting to the part where games are really on that edge of movies like quality, and I really hope that it does more of that, like God of War Ragnarok or Horizon Forbidden West are like great examples of that. But also games like Detroit Become Human on the PS4 was like a great example of that. And there's a lot of stuff coming, but you just hope it's good, and you just hope that the industry will keep on innovating in the right way, and that they're not going to do stuff for the sake of money. We don't need more battle passes, deluxe editions for 100 euros that will give me a week earlier access. Like my hard earned money, especially in these times with the economy and the inflation and stuff. Like, I don't need you to find more ways to milk me out of more money. I need you to find ways to justify me spending my hard earned money on your game, and maybe making sure that I keep on buying your game, because the 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 barrier for entry into games has become so low. Everybody can make games, and sometimes the simplest indie game makes the most money, and because they do something new. So I expect innovation, I expect new experiences, I expect stuff that actually works. Like VR, it's super cool, but I don't believe that's going to be like a sustainable platform, because there's so much technology, there's so much shifts in technology. There's not enough, at least in my opinion, there's not enough games to justify me having a headset. Like the PSVR 2 is coming out. It's like what, 550 or 600 euros.
Mhm.
Super cool, but I don't believe there's like a lot of games that will justify me spending that amount of money. And or Horizon Call of the West will not pull, or whatever it's called, will not pull me over. Or like a Gran Turismo 7 supposed to be amazing when it comes to VR. Yeah, but you know, it's
Ah,
nice and all.
I actually did expect that something like that would draw you in, being the driving nut.
Yeah, yeah, but like I and that's maybe because I have other passions as well that I'm putting a lot more time into now. But my time with games are limited because, and therefore I need the reward to be like the time I invest in it, the reward needs to be the right amount. Like,
Right, yeah.
yeah, I don't like a game where I have to grind. Like I heard somebody say, like when playing Hogwarts, I heard like it takes a long while to get a broom to fly around. I'm like, okay, but I don't have like 20 hours to invest in a game to get a broom to fly around.
Yeah.
So it needs to be at that balance where it's enough return on investment, to put it that way. So that's basically it. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, for me, yeah, I'm looking at this current generation. I'm feeling one of two things is gonna get might happen. We might get another mid refresh,
Yeah.
and and that's probably because they, especially Xbox, is probably gonna add another console type to their arsenal.
They're not
Whereas
going to do the stick. They said that they've stopped that.
no,
Or
but
like
they're
the
doing
streaming
something
stick.
else. They're doing something else. They're doing implementation directly into like TVs instead of a stick.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably the cheaper option.
that is. Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same thing. That the only thing that you're missing right now is like GeForce Now,
Yeah.
which is not doing that, which is super weird.
Yeah. I mean, I would expect them to do like a setup box. They already have a setup box, but do like a
Yeah,
Chromecast like
they're
device,
yeah they're kind of discontinuing the Shield.
Yeah, but like do a Chromecast like device for a couple of like 30, 40, 50 bucks, throw in a controller and a couple of months of subscription and say like, hey, you can just play whatever you want.
I mean, these days, like TVs have pretty good processors in them. You don't even need to do that. You just give them a client.
Yeah.
Because that's what I mean. That's what Xbox is doing right now, right? With the new Samsung TVs, it's like you have a client
Yeah.
to
And then you
like
can
do
pair up
Xbox
your
Cloud
Xbox One
gaming.
controller.
Yeah, or any controller for that matter. So you can even use your PlayStation 5 DualSense.
Oh wow. But how will I know which buttons to press if the on-screen prompt says something completely else than what I have in my hand?
Yeah, that's your problem, not mine. Yeah, I mean, so there are some interesting things on the horizon, but I think at least when it comes to hardware, I think you might be right, but I don't think all the hardware manufacturers are gonna go that way. I'm pretty sure Nintendo's not gonna go that way because they would still want to sell to parents and to kids, but they also still want to sell to the hardcore player. They have learned their, I feel like they've learned their lesson in that, especially considering the high number of sales that they have right now.
Hmm.
That it is important to not just be like just family friendly, but be a system for all and truly for all.
But if you think about it that way, if they want to be able to appeal to families, if you look at how kids spend their time playing games, I think like a lot of kids spend time gaming on a tablet or a smartphone. So um, and Nintendo is, I think, doing better in that area than others when having mobile games available. But I think like maybe especially for a company like Nintendo, it's important to keep that in mind as well. Like
Yeah.
basically Sony and Microsoft are saying like, we have our hardware and we have games that we mainly make for a mature audience. So that audience will keep on buying our hardware or at least find some ways to get access to our games. Whereas Nintendo's audience is mainly family friendly stuff. And in that realm, the smartphone and the tablet pose a very big risk because they're stealing away time from people spending on Nintendo devices, playing on their Nintendo devices.
Yeah, I mean, you could make that argument for basically all the consoles that are out right now. And then if you look to the more enthusiast stuff, let's not forget the Steam Deck is still a thing.
Yeah, I think we're
And
going to see more of that as well.
exactly. So I don't know per se if hardware is ever truly gonna go away. Because you have like the Steam Deck, you have like the Aeon Neo stuff.
Yeah,
But yeah, you have like stuff like GeForce Now and Xbox Cloud Gaming.
yeah,
Um, I feel like I feel like at least the way we're currently heading is we're gonna see way more diversity into how you're going to play your game. How you're
definitely.
like. the choice of playing the games the way you want to play them is going to be very pivotal going into the next 5 or so years. So I think I don't know what Nintendo has planned for their follow up. Maybe they'll make a more powerful Switch. I don't know. Nintendo does weird stuff because it's Nintendo. I can almost predict that Microsoft will, even if they're not being super serious about Xbox Cloud Gaming, they might have to, especially if they're partnering up with TV manufacturers to have Xbox Cloud Gaming on there.
Yeah.
I don't know if Sony's gonna do something like that. I think their focus, like you said, being on service games for the next 10 years, is gonna show a whole different side of Sony in terms of not just like giving us amazing single player content, but also giving us unique, long lasting multiplayer content as well. Which is not, I don't want to say it's never truly been their strong suit, but it's never
Uh,
truly been their strong suit.
yeah, but I don't know why, but I suddenly have to think about those developers that I think they're called deviation games, where they
Yeah.
at Gamescom 2 years ago they did like the pitch where they're like, we're gonna make a super innovative game because we have super innovative people. It's basically all those people that worked for the Call of Duty studios, remember? And
Yeah,
and
I
then
remember, I
it
remember, I
felt like
remember.
they were doing an elevator pitch during that opening night live, and we're like, we don't care about the elevator pitch. We just want to hear what game you're developing. And they're like, no, we're super innovative people. Our studio is driven by innovation. We're gonna make a super innovative game. We're like, yeah, whatever, man. I don't care at this
That
point.
has almost been 2 years ago, so I'm actually kind
I
of curious
know.
when they're gonna show anything, if they're
Yeah,
gonna show anything.
yeah.
So
Oh
yeah, I think with that we're unless you have any other thing that you wanted to add.
no, that's
Um,
basically it.
yeah, all right. So shall I do the honors or will you?
You can do it this time.
All right. Let me see if I still remember it from the olden days. But thank you all so much for listening to Game Rivals. We appreciate that you listen to this podcast, and I hope that you will continue to share this podcast with your friends. As always, you can find us at our home on Anchor, but you can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Overcast. You name it, we're probably there. You can also find us on YouTube. The link will be in the description. You can also send us an email feedback at gamerivalsfeedback@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter, maybe not as much as I used to, but at Maximilian. You can also find our Game Rivals Twitter account there, which is at game underscore rivals underscore. You can find me on Instagram at Maximilian. And you'll also be able to find the Game Rivals Instagram, which is at Game Rivals. And I think that is it.
Yeah, I think
So,
so. Yeah.
Strong Templar, thank you so much for being here, for
Thanks for
sharing
having
your
me.
experience, for sharing your experience, your gaming origins, with the audience and with me, of course. And yeah, I guess there's nothing left to say but our sign off.
I have been and always will be Sean Templar,
And I have been and always will be Maximilian X.
and he will catch you on the next one.
Later.